Namaste everyone here at booktube. Welcome to my channel Hamsavahini Vajra Astra. I'm Ahuna. Today's video is going to be about a beautiful book that I read, and I'm going to do a book review on it. So this book was Chinese Fairy Tales and Legends, and I read this in the month of September 2020, which is just last month. This book has been written by Richard Wilhelm and Frederick H. Martins. It's a beautiful book, and as you can see, the illustrations are beautiful. The binding, it's a hardbound book. Binding is beautiful, and I really enjoyed this book. There are illustrations inside as well, which I really loved. Now, I have pinned down some of my thoughts after reading this book, so I'll be referring to them from here on. Now, this book was published recently in the year 2019. However, the original publication was done in the year of 1917. Now, the genre that it can be categorized under is mythology and legends. Now, this book has been written specifically for middle grade students, and it has been adapted for it as well. So when I say middle grades, it's between children between 9 to 12 years old, but yes, it is suitable for adults as well. Now, about the authors, the first author is Richard Wilhelm, who was a German sinologist. He was a theologian and a missionary. He lived in China for 25 years, became fluent in spoken and written Chinese, and he grew to love and embrace the Chinese people and culture. His other translations include I Ching and the Secret of the Golden Flower. The other translator was Frederick H. Martins, and he was a music journalist, and he was a writer from the USA. His other works include Violin Mastery, which was published in 1919, and AEUHE, which was published in 1922. Now, I arrived at this book while I was participating in a couple of readathons. The first readathon was ATouchOfWhimsy, the second was FairytaleAThon, and the third was MagicalSeptember. So I have posted a link to the announcement videos of the respective hosts of the respective readathons in the description box below. So in case if you're curious, you can definitely check on any of the links. It will take you straight to the videos of the corresponding readathon as well as the host announcement videos. Now, about this book is divided into 7 separate sections. The first section is called Nursery Fairy Tales. Now, I know it sounds absurd, but this is probably one of the very good and fruitful, in fact, the entire book is filled with wisdom, but this is one of those sections of the entire book which gives common sense knowledge, which we do have somewhere, but we almost forget it every day. Now, under the section of nursery fairy tales, we have the tales which have moral values of the Chinese culture, which I really loved. And the second section of this book is Legends of the Gods, which is all about the mythological tales of the divine gods and goddesses and how they came to be. This also has some relevance with Indian mythology, which I absolutely loved. Now, the third section of this book was called The Tales of Saints and Magicians. So it was all about the wisdom of the scholars and of the saints and the immortals, and how they taught humanity as they proceeded through their journey. Now, the fourth section was that of nature and animal tales, and this was also one of my favorite sections. It was all about fairies and dragon princesses and foxes, and it illustrated their cunningness and how humans can help them when they need us and how they help us in return, which is another responsibility we have towards these invisible parallel realms which we cannot perceive naturally today, yet they have not budged from their place. They still remain. It's just that we humans have lost contact and awareness of these realms. It also illustrates through these tales of the moral lessons we can learn through our duty towards nature. The fifth section of this book is of ghost stories, which I don't need to elaborate. You can definitely guess about that. And the sixth section is about historic legends. Now, history has taught us through its legends of making good choices through good intentions, even if we face a difficult situation. And this section definitely teaches us how we can use wisdom to be of a greater, how wisdom, or in fact let me rephrase that, how wisdom can be of greater value in our life as a human being than any other physical requirement. So this is a very enlightening section, I must say. And the last section is literary fairy tales, which are just tales which are written for knowledge and wisdom. So these are some of the sections which are present in this particular book. However, there are some there are some excerpts which I found interesting in this book, especially in the introduction of this book, and this will illustrate how Chinese fairy tales are very different from the Western fairy tales. So I'm just going to read from the book. This is from the introduction, so it's just a very small section that I'm just going to read so that it will emphasize on the nature of the Chinese culture and the Chinese fairy tales, which has its distinct ethnicity and is it has its distinct flavor as well, which I really enjoyed. So here is how it goes. The Yellow River cradled Chinese civilization, and here are stories of gods and spirits who sometimes turned monstrous, bursting the river banks and bringing floods. We read of the temples built to honor them, the plays performed. Then come new gods, new philosophies. Buddha, Confucius, the Tao of Lao Tse emerge in stories that offer us legendary details while also insisting on facts. Chinese storytelling likes to ground itself in actual events, so we are told that this story takes place at the time of the Emperor Ming Di, and that story took place during the first few days of the Tang Dynasty. Perhaps we should expect as much. China is a culture with records dating back thousands of years. The earliest form of writing leaves us records from the 2nd millennium BCE, so the stories we read are often stories reflecting known history. We see the scars of warfare as well as the stability that peace brings. Now there are mandarins, now magistrates, and here comes trades and contacts with foreign people along with the silk trade. What is remarkable about so many of these stories is how often justice is served, even for those with no status. Snow White, that favorite of the West, is a princess, and Cinderella the daughter of a rich man. By contrast, Chinese tales gives us slave girls winning their freedom, poor men earning rewards, children spared from abusive parents. In a culture that insists on obligations owed by children to their parents, that's storytelling with a radical edge. So these are very beautifully illustrated, as well as I hope that I can show you a couple of illustrations over here which are present in this book. So as you can see, this is one of the illustrations. Not my favorite, of course, but yes, this book is filled with authentic illustrations which I really loved, and I would highly recommend this book, as well as in case if there's anybody who does love Chinese ethnicity and wants to know more about the Chinese culture, please go through this book, and I would suggest that the extent to which they have preserved the authenticity, not only in illustrations but also in the content, is actually awe-inspiring. So I really loved this book, and I love the pure ethnicity, ethnicity, I'm sorry about that, I don't know what's wrong. So I love the pure ethnicity which has been maintained throughout, and I personally, on a very hectic day, would engage myself, or would love to engage myself, coloring those illustrations after reading the fairy tale for a more therapeutic purpose. So I'm gaining something, I can recollect it while I'm trying to, or recollect the moral of the story while trying to, fill in colors, which would be quite therapeutic in my opinion. And the rating that I would give this book is 5 on 5. Now, those would be my thoughts on this particular book, which is Chinese Fairy Tales and Legends. So in case if you pick up this book, do please let me know what your thoughts are on this book. And if you would like, please leave your comments in the comment section below, or make a video in response to this video on your views and opinions after reading this book. So that's all I have for today, and with that I'll be wrapping up this video. I will meet you in another video with another book review soon. Thank you so much for joining me. Wish you a happy reading week ahead. Take care and namaste.